Michelle is a musician with albums released as Everyone Except Me and artist behind the post-apocalyptic webcomic Stray Cats. She's kind, a bit shy, and furiously creative. Henrique is a filmmaker with over 24 films and TV shows as producer, director, and occasionally host. He also released a couple of music albums. He's bombastic, larger than life, and tenacious almost to a fault. Together, they've been best friends for a decade. This show is awkward.
So, Michelle.
So?
I have just been having a great time.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I guess I'm going to do this on the show. I meant to drink this Pepto-Bismol before we started.
Oh.
I've been making all kinds of great decisions. Bismuth. So, well, first of all, I mean, my number one mistake was just I decided to have a box of, for lunch, a box of Flamin' Hot Cheetos macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it. I'm not a snob guy. I thought it might be like an awesome novelty treat. I feel kind of sick.
It was really, really red. It worried me how red it was.
It was so red that the pot was so red I had to scrub it like 3 times to get all the red dye out.
Wow.
So my great Aunt Betty died yesterday. As of the time we're recording this. Obviously, it'd be weird if I was like, by the time you hear this, she will have died the day before. It'd be very specific.
Yeah.
But yeah, Betty passed away. She'd been sick for a while. She'd had dementia for a while. Mm-hmm. And yeah, she she wasn't young. She was my great aunt. She was basically my grandma. She was like a mother to my mother and like a grandmother to me. And to be honest, I have no idea how much I want to talk about it or not.
Yeah, I understand.
I have no clue. Grief is really weird for everybody. But I'd like to think for me especially. Because I'm special, Michelle, and the things that happen to me are special.
I'm right there with you. You're right.
I've been a relatively fortunate person in life. I haven't lost a lot of people. But I've had some big losses in my life. And this was the first person like this close to me to die of a prolonged illness, I guess is the way to put it. And I'm not like, rage screaming or anything. I mean, I cried a bunch and stuff, but like, it's hard because like the only other thing I have to compare it to was like a really sudden, really tragic death.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not what this was. This wasn't sudden. And I mean, all deaths are tragic, but I mean, she passed away, no pain, surrounded by her kids and her grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
I consider that, if you got to do it, then that's the way to do it. Yeah. So I've just been trying to figure out like what I want to do to cope. Mm-hmm. Like for instance, eating an entire box of Flamin' Hot Cheeto macaroni and cheese, which is probably the saddest way. They probably have like hotlines for people who are thinking of coping that way. Like if you are thinking about eating an entire box of Flaming Hot Cheetos macaroni and cheese, please, there are people willing to listen to you 24 hours a day to help you not do it. Yesterday, I got the news like first thing in the morning. In fact, I think I texted you and was like, they don't think she's going to make it past today. I think I texted you that morning and said like, they don't think she's going to make it past today. And then like 20 minutes later, I was like, she just passed away.
I actually think that's not how it happens.
But it might have been David or one of my other friends that I text all the time that I said that to.
Oh, no, I mean, you had told me that, but I think you told me like the night prior.
Okay. There's someone that I was chatting with, a friend that I chat with all the time, who I told like, it doesn't look like she's going to, make it past today. And then like, it was like 20 minutes later, I got the text that she was gone. So thanks for correcting me in my grief. Always appreciated. Good friendship move.
Yeah.
Thanks. But so I woke up and and then that happened. And Tuesdays are like the hardest day of the week for me on average, because most weeks are unpredictable, but Tuesdays are generally very predictable. Tuesday is the day that I do Weekly Spooky. I sit down and I record the story, which, by the way, this week's Weekly Spooky is written by you, Michelle.
Yeah.
So if I would be shocked if you were a listener of this show and not a listener of Weekly Spooky, but if you are not a listener of my horror podcast, Weekly Spooky, you should at least check out Normal Shit, the episode that Michelle wrote. It's the latest episode of Weekly Spooky, which publishes every Wednesday. You should check it out. It's a really good one. It's based on her comic book. You basically like kind of made a prose version of a piece from your comic, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that going to be in the comic eventually, or is that just an offshoot that you kind of wrote for it?
I think it's just kind of like I'm sure parts of that will happen, but I think that's just kind of an offshoot, because I was like, how do I make this make sense? It's got to be, it's because I don't want to just put like a snippet in there with like like not explaining things.
Sure. No, that's cool. So it's like, it's like a bonus story.
Yeah, exactly.
In the comic.
It's like an omake, but really long.
I knew you were going to have some anime ass thing to say. I knew it. So I'm working on Weekly Spooky, and one of the things that you have to do, that I have to do when I do Weekly Spooky, unlike this show can have a little bit, it can be a little relaxed, like we can have, you can hear a car drive by. We're just sitting and talking, you can have the window open, hear some birds or whatever. You can hear my air conditioning running because we're just having a conversation. But on Weekly Spooky, it's supposed to be this scary, atmospheric, enveloping thing. So I need quiet, as quiet as is possible. I live in a suburban area and stuff, but it can get pretty damn quiet, honestly. One of those things, though, is shutting off the HVAC. And I've even mentioned it on episodes of the show afterward. I'm like, I got to be honest, I'm sweating because I had to shut the HVAC off. And then that story took like an hour and a half to record. Oh, God, and now it's like 77, 78, 79 degrees in here. So I'm shutting off the HVAC, and I noticed that lately when I shut it off, it runs for like another 3 or 4 minutes. And then sometimes while it's in the off position, now I mean the off on the thermostat, not like I didn't cut power from it.
Right.
I noticed that sometimes it would just kick on.
Like it's short cycling?
Or something. Now, we had an issue where it was doing that really bad, and we had that fixed, and it was different. But it was just like kicking on. And I was getting frustrated, and I had actually, the day or two before, I fell down a rabbit hole reading about Google Nests, the thermostats that are digital. So I was like getting really pissed off because I'm having a really rough day, and now all of a sudden this fucking thing is doing this stuff. So I pull the faceplate off of it, and it looks fine, but it has 2 AA batteries. And I'm like, maybe it just needs new batteries. So I pull the batteries out, and they are corroded as shit. I mean, they are really, really corroded. And I'm trying to fix this up and stuff. And then all of a sudden it's just like erroring out entirely. And it's like completely busted the thermostat. So I get mad. I'm like, screw this. So I went to Best Buy and I bought a Google Nest, which, by the way, they're not that expensive anymore. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the Google Nest used to be like $300. Right. Now the newest model is $130.
That's definitely better.
That's not terrible. I mean, for the features you get, and the ability to like save a bunch of energy and blah 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 blah, and they're cool. So my grief-stricken brain is like, let's just friggin' do stuff. Like, let's do it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to change my thermostat myself. and I'd watched a couple of tutorials, and this is not me being like crazy DIY guy. The thermostat comes with DIY instructions to just change it out yourself.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. Basically, this version of Nest, as long as you don't have a high voltage thermostat, or the cables aren't high voltage, you can just hook it up yourself. If it has high voltage, then you just can't use that version. You have to buy a more expensive Nest that's meant for that type of thing. And it's real easy to tell if you have high voltage, because high voltage will have like thick wires, with like twist caps on them. And you know all this because you're a fucking home inspector.
Yeah, they need bigger wires for bigger gauges.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to mansplain this to you. It's just that I don't believe you understand.
Okay. Yeah, well, you're right. But there's other people listening who might not know about wire sizes.
Yeah. So, and like, this is a battery powered thermostat. So there's no C wire, which is what's that called? The common wire is what they call it, which is just for powering thermostats. There's no C wire because my thermostat has batteries. Well, so does the Nest. It just has batteries to power it. So I'm like, screw it. So I open up my thermostat. I see all the cords, and they tell you, they give you these little sticky not Band-Aids, little sticky labels you can put on each wire to make sure you don't forget which one they are.
But you don't do that because you're just like, I'll remember these wires.
I would not do that because I have no confidence in my competence.
That's what I do.
But I was like, I'm not going to use these stickers because they don't stick very well. And what if one falls off and I'll get confused? Now, there's only 4 wires. My house is a 1-floor home. There's 4 wires. So I'm like, okay, instead, I am going to make a legend. So I'll just look at the thing and be like, okay, so this is wire C is, or not wire C, but like, because I didn't have one, but like the wire Y, that's a yellow wire. And wire R, that's a red wire. And then all of a sudden, when I was on the last one, I was like, are they just the color of the... Yeah, they are. Yeah. So I didn't need to write anything down. I could have just literally been like, R goes to R, Y goes to Y, G goes to G, W goes to white. It was so... it was so painfully easy. Beyond the initial, it didn't even take me 25 minutes. It didn't even take 25 minutes. So now... I could tell my house through my Alexa. I had to say that quietly so that it didn't activate. I can tell it to I can ask it what my thermostat's set to and then tell it to turn it up or down, which is pretty cool. Although when I ask it something like, what is the humidity in the house, which it tells, Alexa snaps at you like it's angry because it's like, I don't feature that yet. And I'm like, God, sorry I asked. Excuse me, all the hell, for having a house I can chat with. So I'm excited, but also I discovered that thermostat was reading wrong because I thought it was weird that I was keeping my house at 70 degrees. I felt like that was a little on the cold side for me, but it's what felt right. And my mother will kill me if I, to save money, am too warm. She would literally kill me. So I set it to 70, and then all of a sudden I'm walking around the house and I'm like, whew, it's whew. So I set it to 72, and that feels much more like what I'm used to. 72, 71 tops. Before it was 70 and sometimes even 69. Nice.
Wow.
I know. Was what I used to set on. So I think that it was 2 degrees or so off, because now I set it to 72, maybe 71. So, and I can set it so that at midnight it automatically goes to 74. And then at 9 a.m. it automatically goes back to my comfort setting, which is 72. So I don't have to touch anything or anything. And it's not just an auto thing. It actually activates early so that at that time is when it hits the comfort temperature. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, and when I leave, it has an economy setting.
That's good.
For the temperature. Now I didn't let it go full economy because the dogs are here. I don't want them to sit here in 83 degree weather or temperatures. So
it's okay for me, and it's not okay with. Okay.
Well, you are majority hairless, so
yeah, that's true.
They're big, furry mountain dogs.
Yeah.
So they need a little coolness. So, but yeah. So that's what I did with some of my grief, was I installed it. And then after that was all installed and perfectly done and everything, then I was like, holy crap, it's like an hour and a half until I have to go to the movies and the show's not done. I had recorded like 2/3 of it and then stopped and let myself get distracted by, this stuff. Because that's how I am with grief, I think, is I just kind of like today, other than doing the show, I've just been like wandering on the house. It's weird because, I work from home, and like there are lots of places I work, mostly in my office, but like in my seat in my living room, my favorite spot to sit, I have like my laptop right there and my iPad right there. So sometimes I work there, and so like I just have been kind of just drifting around the house, like working a little here and then drifting over somewhere else and working a little there. Yeah. So, yeah. I at least thought that at least the Nest story was at least a little funny and not so sad as everything else I could talk about would be very, very sad.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. Do you want to say something, or should I just start talking about sad things? I mean, it's
I don't know. What do you want to do?
What I really want to do is get rid of this indigestion from eating this flaming hot Cheetos macaroni and cheese. Why did I think it was fun? It wasn't even good while I was eating it. It was okay, but I was hungry, so I just ate it all because I was really hungry. And now I'm still hungry and I feel gross.
Ew.
Yeah, I know. I'm not okay.
I'm sorry. I wish you didn't have to eat that.
I'm sorry. It was my destiny.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. Like, part of me wants to just like, and go to another topic and try to find one, because that's what we usually do, or what I usually do is like just kind of steer things into brick walls, like I usually do. And then part of me wants to just talk about Betty. I don't know if that's the right thing to do or not.
I don't think there is a right thing to do. So,
thank you for not helping.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know. Fuck, man. What? You were going to say something. You should say something.
I don't think I was, actually.
No, my family is not really, it's kind of, splintered and not really I don't have a very big family. And my grandma on my mother's side, she passed away in 2006, and we were not close.
Yeah.
Around that same time, my grandmother on my father's side, they just kind of let me go. They just stopped talking to me. I will say that my grandma on my father's side has been working hard to make amends. She's living in an assisted living home, and I go to see her sometimes, and she's really trying to like be cool and be my grandma now. But I went a really long time where the only, the relative that cooked Christmas dinner and Thanksgiving was Betty. So we call her Aunt Betty, but she's my great aunt, so she's my mother's aunt, and so she's grandma age for sure. And Betty was just always there for me and my mom. There were a lot of times where we really didn't have a huge support system. And Betty and her husband, Charles, who unfortunately he passed away in 2004, I think, or I believe 2004. They were always there for us. I remember when we finally bought our first house, they got us a dining room set. We didn't have one. And all we had was like a couch and a love seat and our beds. And I remember my mom was, just, trying to figure out like, what are we going to do with, all the space, trying to make it look nice, trying to make it a home, because we hadn't lived in the best places. But more importantly, this was ours, it was a big goal for my mother. And I remember Betty and Charles like showing up in Betty's minivan. She had this red minivan. She had it forever. She had that red minivan until she lost her license, until she had to get her license suspended indefinitely because she was just not able to pass the test anymore. I mean, because Betty, was almost 90. So she had a good run. But I remember that red minivan, always that red minivan. And one of the, so the house I live in now that I rent, my mother owns it, but she lives with her husband, and I rent this house from my mother, and I'm intending to buy it someday.
Right.
And but this was the first house my mother ever owned. I moved in here when I was about 9 or 10 years old. So I have a lot of fond memories in this house and stuff. It's weird that now it's just all mine. It's kind of funny, but I remember when we were looking at houses, I remember when we were looking at houses, we looked at a bunch of houses kind of like this one. And this isn't the biggest house. It's a ranch house. It's 3 bedrooms. I'm in the smallest bedroom of them all. It's not very big. The house is like, I think, 1080 square feet, roughly. But it's not the smallest house either. I like it. I like this house. I do.
It's a good house.
Thank you. But I remember after we looked at a bunch of houses, and most of the houses were much nicer than this one. I mean, in the way they looked, and they were bigger. And I remember I was a kid, so I was kind of a brat. And at the time we were living in a townhouse for a little while, and it was really nice. And I didn't understand, being a kid, that it was better to live in a house you could fix up that you owned than to live in a really nice rental. That was why what mom wanted.
Yeah.
So when it turned out we could only get this house, which my mom even wasn't in love with this house in its current state at the time. We called it the Dog's Butt. It was like, and then there's the Dog's Butt over on, I almost said my street name. Then there's the Dog's Butt. But when we got it, I got really sad because I didn't like it. It had like ugly carpet, had yellow wallpaper, and I'm a little kid. I don't get that. Like, we're going to fix it all.
Yeah.
But I remember that, I remember that one of the things Mom said that made me excited to move here was we were like a third of a mile up the road from Betty. We were like in her neighborhood. And that was like that was the thing that made me excited to live here, because it was like, I could just go walk to Betty's house. I could just go walk over to Betty and Charles. And they were both, almost retired age. So I used to pop in on them all the time. I used to walk over there, and I remember in the summer, if I walked over there at 1 or something, there was always cold soda. And Betty used to give everybody soda exactly the way she liked it, which was a really tall glass all the way full of crushed ice. And then you just added your soda until there was no more room, and then you drank until there was enough room to add more soda. And that's how Betty liked her soda. So that's how she served your soda. And I remember I would go and I would just sit and watch TV with her, And Uncle Charlie, he was a really cool dude too. He was like a nerd. He was like a tech nerd. So he'd always be like, Rick, come over here. You're going to love this. And it would always be like, he had like a mini disc burner. Remember mini disc, the music format? He had a mini disc burner. Wow. He was so excited. He was like, listen to how good these sound. And he like play his gospel music on the mini discs. Uncle Charlie was a gospel singer professionally. And he wrote a famous gospel song, Will I See You in the Rapture? Or I Will See You in the Rapture. Sorry. I Will See You in the Rapture. Which, no joke, as a kid, I used to always, if I went to like a friend's church or whatever, it was in the back of Bibles. Like, cool. Yeah. In fact, I don't know if I'll ever be able to find the photo again, but when I was helping Betty pack up her house before she ended up in the nursing home, we found a photo. She was just like naming those. She's like, oh, that's Charles and so-and-so, and that's Charles and so-and-so, and that's Charles and Johnny Cash, and that's Charles. And I was like, whoa, what? Betty, what? And she was like, oh yeah, he toured Jerusalem with Johnny Cash.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa. Yeah. Charlie was the first showbiz member of my family, and kind of only showbiz member of my family. Well, I mean, I didn't mean other, like, not including me. Sorry.
Okay.
That was actually a slight at another relative, and I don't want to say their name.
Oh, okay.
I meant he was the first. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I see why that was. Yeah, I wasn't being self-deprecating for once. But Uncle Charlie always had something fun going on, and he had his little office. You know how you've been to my house. They had at their house, the garage went all the way to the back wall of the house, and they turned that little spot into his office. So there's like a divider. So the garage is over here, but his office is over here. And he always had something fun going on his computer. I remember one time he called me, was like, he would always say, Rick, you're going to love this. And one time he was like, Rick, you're going to love this. And he hands me a metal detector. And I was like, oh my God. And I like went out searching for treasure all day. So, and there were also things like, sometimes things would get hairy with mom at work, and I would stay with them in the mornings, and they'd drive me to school. And there were a lot of times where they just stepped up for us all the time, really. Yeah. And of course, Betty's house was where we had Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners for more than a decade. In fact, when she sold the house, which just made sense. I mean, she still owed money. Long story, but she owed money on the house, so it made sense to sell it so she could pay off what she owed and then just use the rest of the money to live on. And I remember the last Thanksgiving at her house because me and mom, we cooked for her. And it was really nice because, for years and years and years, she had to learn how to make the turkey because Charles always made the turkey until he passed away. And she usually pawned that off on her son, Kim. She'd be like, Kim makes the turkey. I make the stuffing and the cornbread and the fried corn, which is so good. Fried corn is amazing. That was Betty's, and chicken and dumplings, which was Betty's specialty. The secret to Betty's chicken and dumplings, got to use Kroger biscuits. Don't make them from scratch. Don't do no good. Betty was from Hazard, Kentucky, by the way. And she grew up, she was born, a really long time ago. I wish I don't have the information in front of me and I don't feel like getting it. But she used to tell me stories about growing up in a tent city. She grew up in what literally is a shanty town. She grew up in a town of tents outside of Hazard, Kentucky. Which is pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Sorry, it's just like there's so many thoughts. But I had so many good memories of Christmases and Thanksgivings and occasionally a 4th of July. Occasionally there'd be a cookout. And I remember Betty her thing was, you knew Betty was unwinding if she had a Bud Light. That's how you knew she was unwinding for the day. And we'd all encourage Betty because she'd never finish it. So we'd always be like, Betty, have your Bud Light. Like, have your Bud Light and enjoy yourself. Because she'd never finish it anyway. It's not like she was going to drink herself stupid. Betty used to also, she was not a habitual smoker, but she would occasionally smoke a cigarette, maybe once or twice a week. And one of my favorite exchanges ever witnessing between my mother and Betty was when Betty had to change doctors, and the doctor asked her if she smoked, and she said no. And my mom, after the fact, was like, Betty, you do smoke. And she's like, that's none of his business. My mom was like, it's exactly his business. Because she's just like, he was a normal person. She doesn't let anybody who's not close to her know she smokes a couple cigarettes every now and then. Yeah, it's none of his business. She was just, she was a fiery person. She had an incredibly strong personality. One of my favorite Betty moments is one of my cousins had brought his girlfriend to Thanksgiving years and years ago, and she was wearing like really short skirt, like Hot Topic, really, really short, skirt. And everybody was nice to her, but the moment she was gone, Betty was just like, she seemed nice, but I don't know about that outfit of hers. And I was like, what do you mean, Betty? And she was like, I don't know. She looks like she dresses like she's looking for something. That was Betty, you know, like she always impressed me by virtue of being very old school, you know, and stuff like that, but not being shitty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Betty, you know, was never a friggin' racist. You know, she had some stuff where you go, Betty, and Betty would be like, oh, all right. You know, like she might say a little something. I mean, Betty was old, man. If you thought, like, see, because people be listening and be like, rah, rah. Betty would like say something that came off a little racist, and you'd confront her and she'd be like, all right. Betty's sister, my grandmother, would just say racist stuff. And if you didn't like it, you could just get out. So there's a difference. And that's another thing to point out, is that Betty and Charles, not all people approved of the circumstances of my birth. I mean, it's the same now. It's just for different reasons. But no, you know, not everybody was super fond of the circumstances of my birth, and I don't think I need to spell it out for everybody. But you know, it's like, why couldn't I have just been the product of, you know, unwed pregnancy? Why couldn't I have just been the product of like kind of interracial baby? Why couldn't I have just been the product of like woman and biker? No, I had to be all fucking three.
Mm-hmm.
So there were people who were not a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
But Betty and Charles were not those people. It's I'm really lucky that I'm such an open wound of a person. I tell people I love them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that I'm that way.
Me too.
Because the reason I'm getting emotional right now is like, I wish I was literally having this stupid cliche thought where I was like, I wish I could have told Betty this, and then I had to stop and go, well, I mean, again, I wish I could have told Betty again how much I love her, because I told her a lot how much I love her, and I made a really difficult decision that maybe I'll regret someday. But once her dementia got really bad, I didn't go to visit anymore. It was really, really hard on me, and it was hard when she couldn't recognize me and stuff. So I made that decision, and my mother respected it. And so I think I'm the only one who's like, maybe it was a bad idea. Everybody else is like, you do what you need to do. And I'm like, no, I'm a terrible person. Please shoot me in the face, you know? Mm-hmm. But I did tell Betty a lot, you know, and Betty was Betty, you know, she'd just give me a hug. Stoic country folk, you know, I love you too, and just like hug you. Also, because I lived so nearby, and I'm one of the grandkids, kinda, but not, but kinda. Mm-hmm. Oh man, my phone always rang when the television didn't work or when the satellite TV was down. You remember this, right?
Yeah, because one time, like she couldn't get her car to start while I was over.
Did you get to meet Aunt Betty?
I did.
Oh my God, you did meet Aunt Betty. I remember now because she was at Kroger.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you got to meet Aunt Betty. That makes me so happy. It does, though. It makes me really happy. Sorry, making fun of how I hear myself in my headphones. I'm like, wow, I'm really high pitched. No, it just makes me happy. Like, the next girlfriend texted me today saying, I'm so sorry you lost Betty. She was amazing. And I'm like, oh yeah, you spent like 3 Thanksgivings with Betty. I'm glad that she left an impression on you. I got a Facebook comment from my friend Dwayne, who's been in a couple of my movies. The opening of my romantic comedy Making Out, which you can find on Tubi if you want to watch it. At the beginning of it, there's a scene where the main character is jogging and he stops to rest for a second, and there's a guy walking this tiny little dog. And they have an exchange, and then it turns funny and the guy runs off. Well, that little dog was my Aunt Betty's dog, Angel. It was a little teacup terrier. And we shot that in front of Betty's house. Because like I said, right down the street from my house.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire crew just drove over there and we filmed there because I thought it'd be cool to do that. And also so Betty could see me work a little bit. I thought it would be neat. Because she loved that I made movies, but she didn't know anything about it, And she watched a couple of them. The ones that, would fit her. She was at the world premiere of Calamity Jane's Revenge. My mom brought her, and she was like, "I really like that. Ricky needs to make more westerns." She's allowed to call me Ricky. She's not grandfathered in. She's great aunted in. But Dwayne commented on that and said, "Is Aunt Betty the woman that we met on that day we shot on Making Out?" And I said, yes. And he was like, she was such a sweet lady. You probably didn't know this, but she was offering to make us all lunch, but we didn't have time to stay because we were just going to be there and then leave. And he was like, but she made me take a Coke, like a little can of Coke. And she made everyone, and I kind of remember this part. She made everyone on the crew call her Aunt Betty. Mm-hmm. So everybody, they couldn't call her Betty. They had to call her Aunt Betty.
Oh.
And it just made me really happy that that he could be like, she seemed like a really incredibly sweet person. And I was like, thank you. I'm glad you got to hang out with her for a minute. I really am. Yeah. And I got a comment from my friend Vicky, who is actually the mother of one of my childhood friends growing up, who they were actually across the street neighbors of my Aunt Betty for 5 years.
Oh.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Because one time, Betty's car was dead and we had it towed, and she called me and was like, Betty isn't dead, is she? Like, she was so scared because Betty was very old and lived by herself. She was just really worried because she hadn't seen Betty in a while, and then all of a sudden her car got towed out of the driveway.
Yeah.
She was like, Betty's not dead, is she? And I was like, no, Betty's fine, but her car is dead. And I don't think it's coming back this time. Betty used to go to the same mechanic all the time and just dump tons of money into that stupid minivan. Yeah. I mean, she only went to the grocery store, so but no, that makes me really happy you got to meet Aunt Betty. I didn't remember that right off the top of my head. That is so great. I'm so glad you got to meet that sweet little ball of fire that is my Aunt Betty. And you got to see her when she was still pretty friggin' spry because she was still driving and stuff. So that makes me super duper happy. It really does. Thank you for reminding me of that. But yeah, I was always helping her, and sometimes it was really stressful and sometimes it was fine. There was also a period of time where she was having a ton of heart problems, which turned into nothing, which is great. But so there were a couple of instances where I would get a phone call and my mom would be like, I'm taking Betty to the hospital. Will you go and sleep at her house with her dog and like feed the dog and let the dog out? And I would. I didn't have a dog of my own at the time, so it didn't matter. Although, unfortunately, Angel passed away suddenly. She had a heart arrhythmia or something that just, she passed away very young. But she got to meet Henwolf a couple of times, and that little dog was just fascinated by giant dogs. And Wolfie, it's funny, Wolfie doesn't like little dogs that get in her face, but that dog was so little, Wolfie just didn't do anything about it. It was so funny. I'm sorry if this is rambly.
No, it's not.
I just want to celebrate Betty a little bit.
Yeah.
She was awesome. She was really awesome. So I want to tell 2 more Betty stories, and then I want to stop talking.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start with the heavy one, and then I'll tell the funny one.
Okay. So
I was bullied as a kid, right? Yeah. You're like, I hope so. No, yeah, I was bullied as a kid, and I lived so close to my elementary school that, I could walk to and from. So, one day in 5th grade, I was walking home and some bullies decided to just follow me. And they chased me all the way to my house. And I ran into the house and I locked the door and I hid. And they like were pounding on my door and like knocking on my windows and screaming stuff at me. And I didn't know what to do. So I called my mom. And my mom is like, I'm calling Betty. Betty shows up in her red minivan, little 4 foot, couldn't be 4'10". You saw her. She was really short. Little Aunt Betty in her early 70s, probably at this point, gets out of her minivan and starts chasing and swearing at these little kids. You little sons of a, you get out of here right now. And just chases them off.
Wow.
And she chased him off, and then, I opened my front door, and she came in and she gave me a big hug and was just like, it's okay. They're gone. They're stupid. Don't listen to them. And I forgot to mention, it wasn't... Mom didn't say I'm calling Betty. Mom said I'm calling Charles. Mm-hmm. It's just I remember it that way because Betty was who showed up. Charles was not home. Mm-hmm. So Betty showed up by herself and chased all these kids off. It happened again.
Really?
Years later, different bullies.
Good. I would hope that they wouldn't try that.
Oh,
again.
Well, that time Betty showed up with her daughter, who was like my mom's age, and they literally, her daughter like literally chased them up the street, like saying she was going to kill them and call the cops and all this shit.
Good.
But they're just, I love that memory so much of her holding me like that. Betty never told me to be normal. She never told me to get a job. She never told me to do anything except make my mom happy. And she used to say that all the time. She used to say, she used to... When I used to visit her, when I used to visit her just a few years before she had to, move out of her house, so more recent. Well, she used to sit there and just be like, that Karen, my mom's name's Karen. She used to be like, that Karen, she is one of the good ones. And she'd turn to me and she'd go, and she sure loves you. I'm going to miss Betty a lot. I loved her so much. So, what? This is a story I don't remember that my mom tells me. This is a story my mom tells me. Mm-hmm. Has been telling me my whole life, this story. But I don't remember it happening. But so when I was a little boy, I had a lot of hand-me-down clothes, which I don't think you did probably because you were the oldest, right?
Yeah, hard for me to get them from anywhere.
Well, you see, my mom's childhood best friend had a son 3 years earlier than me. Mm-hmm. So I would get boxes of stuff and we wouldn't even go through it. We would just put it in the closet. Yeah. So I had a lot of fun. I have a lot of fond memories of being like 7, 8, 9, 10 and spending the weekend in my closet, just discovering what I had. Mm-hmm. And I would literally like run down the stairs and be like, Mom, look, I have a green suit. And my mom would be like, that's cool. Or I'd be like, Mom, look at this sweater. Like I had no idea what was in my closet. Mm-hmm. It was actually really fun. And it was like, it was kind of like shopping at a thrift store too, though. Cause some of it would be too small. Mm-hmm. Some of it would be way too big. You didn't, know. But because of that closet of magical potential, I used to dress really weird at school. And I used to, before I started wearing my Star Trek uniform in school, which that came later, I used to wear suits to school for no reason. Like in third, fourth grade, I used to just wear suits.
Wow.
I found a suit in my closet. I thought it looked cool. I'd wear a suit. Mm-hmm. And one time I was wearing a suit to school. I probably did it like 10 times, but it feels like I did it a million. But one time Betty had to drive me to school. And as Betty's driving me to school, this is my mom's recounting. Mm-hmm. As Betty's driving me to school, Betty said, do the other kids in your class dress like that? And apparently, I don't know how old I was exactly, but apparently I turned to her and just said, I'm not like the other kids.
Oh.
And Mom said Betty's response was just fair enough. So, you know, I guess so I'm just thankful that I had somebody like Betty, because it's easy for somebody like me to forget, because we all focus so much on negative things sometimes, you know, like I don't have a dad. I don't have a dad. My dad abandoned me. But I had Betty and I had Charles, and I had Betty a long time. I was really fortunate to have her for so long. And, I remember Charles. I've actually, one of the nice things about this whole mess is that I've been remembering a lot of really wonderful things. There was never the moment like, remember that time Betty and Charles were mad at you? No, it never happened. Betty and Charles were always so kind to us. Mm-hmm. But I remember Uncle Charlie, my mom telling me that Uncle Charlie once came to her and was like, you know, he doesn't really seem to want to hang out with the kids at the family functions. I'd go hang with the adults. Mm-hmm. And my mom would be like, yeah, he seems to like adults. And Charlie would be like, well, I mean, you pretty much have a conversation with him. And I'm like 4 or 5, whatever. And my mom used to always tell me that. She'd always be like, yeah, Charlie was like, you can have a conversation with that kid. So I'm just thankful. Yeah, Betty always wanted me to know that I was special and that I was good and that I was fine, and that if anybody had a problem with me, they had to deal with her first. Mm-hmm. And that's something I want to give to the people I love, and I hope I do. If anybody has a problem with, if any of you motherfuckers have a problem with Michelle, take it up with me first, you sons of bitches.
No, don't just take it up with me. It's fine.
I would normally, I'm pulling the curtain back. I would normally have put the ending right there.
Yeah, I kind of figured that would have been a good spot.
But I don't. But I want to I want to say. So I just want to say, rest in peace, Betty Feltner. Thank you for all the love and thank you for everything. And I look forward to remembering you for the rest of my life. And thank you, Michelle, for watching me cry for like 50 minutes. And because you're the only one who will. Everybody else, if they're smart, they've shut this off already.
Oh, you know everybody. You know that people like. But I don't think people will find this one funny. But if you do, I'm coming for you.
Wait, what? I said some funny stuff.
No, it's not a funny episode.
Thanks for listening. You can email us at thisshowисawkward@gmail.com or go to awkwardshow.com or whatever. See you next time.